talk for a few minutes about Noam Chomsky, because you talk about him a bit in the book. It's not a tremendous amount, but I have a friend who's on what I consider in this regressive group, and a lot of times we'll be debating back and forth about this stuff, and I'll be giving him as much historical knowledge as I have and as much factual knowledge as I have, and then he'll sort of always end everything by saying, well, I don't really know about that, but I read some Chomsky and I'm just kind of giving it back to you. And I think you sort of hit on that also in the book, that there's just this belief in this guy that maybe isn't fully warranted, or he's been very good at waving off the things that don't quite agree with his worldview.
Yeah, it's interesting for two reasons. I mean, one, he's an old guy, I don't want to come on, just shout him down, but I mean, he's adopted some pretty disgraceful positions, denying the massacres of Bosnian Muslims and going along with people who, it's the 1990s, and going along with that, and never admitting he's wrong, and building this Chomsky's writing, it's very poor writing in substandard English, but it builds this very dense web, and like your friend, once you're in, you're like a fly caught in the web. It's very hard to get out. Yeah. So that's kind of fisking. Do you say fisking in America? You fish.
I know what fisking is, but I don't know that people really say.
Yeah, you just go through it and you say, look, this man, this is all from a point of view. It's sort of made up, and actually, when you think about what he's doing, it's quite disgraceful. But here's why I thought Chomsky was worth devoting a chapter to, is this. What kind of, you are a young radical on the American campus, and you get your Chomsky, you read all his books, and you think, well, what kind of society are you aiming for? There is no social vision. There's nothing that the progressives and socialists who run through American history from the 1880s would recognize. They'll just say, well, this is all just saying America's shit, if you forgive me. America's shit. America would probably never have happened. The Pilgrim Fathers would probably have turned around at Plymouth Rock and gone back to England. The whole thing is a disaster. Everything it does is wrong. Everything is a lie. And you think, well, that's a ridiculous world vision. But funnily enough, here's the thing. It's really easy to buy into.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to commit to anything. The regressive left, which I really like that phrase. Well, let's stick with the regressive left.
Yeah.
The Chomskyan left, the post-socialist left. On the one hand, it has very, very little to say positive. On the other hand, that's kind of easy for everyone to sign up to. You just have to think that Washington's a pile of shit. Well, Washington, D.C. is a pile of shit. Well, that's easy enough.
Yeah.
That the State Department doesn't know what it's doing. Yeah, fine. The CIA is wicked. And so instead of having a left wing you had to make really positive commitments for, 40 years ago, I could have come on your program and said, I'm a socialist, right? I'm a socialist. And your audience might have said, oh, right, Nick Cohen, he's a socialist. That sounds good. We'll go along with him. He says, and I say, I want massively high taxes, or I want to nationalize this and that. And people who would have been in agreement would say, well, back off and say, hell, I don't want anything to do with this. This guy's threatening my living standards. Now, you just have to say that everything you read is a lie, your government's evil. And so suddenly, that's actually, because you're making so few positive policy commitments, as Chomsky does, it's suddenly very easy to go along with him. I go into the homes of people here in London, which is a very expensive city. I go into homes of the richest people I know, and there are books by Noam Chomsky on their shelves. And that's because, funnily enough, for all the supposed radicalism, that kind of left wing without a positive program, with just the critique, is no threat to them. It's no threat to the wealthy. It's no threat to the powerful. It's no threat to the bankers on Wall Street. It's something lots of people, when they're quite justifiably often pissed off with their government, or because they've got a conspiracy theory mind, or because they want to look trendy, everyone can sign up to that. Mm-hmm. A genuine left-wing program is hard. A genuine left-wing program makes friends and enemies. But this kind of pseudo-left, this regressive left, it's terribly easy to believe in. Too easy, I think, for any successful political movement.
It's interesting because I was really embedded in it for a couple of years, and I guess I hadn't pieced this all together, what you're talking about right now. But part of my frustration was that we never talked about solutions. we always could talk about problems, right? It was always, the American industrial complex and bombing and race and whatever, but there were never solutions. So that does get to what you're saying, that it's sort of...
You see, because as soon as you offer a solution, you're going to piss some people off.
Yeah.
Because a solution and you have to make a commitment. And as soon as you make a commitment, then people can say, well, look, Dave Rubin believes in this. Well, this is wrong. It's very easy to just say it's all a conspiracy, it's all shit.
Yeah.
That way you don't expose yourself. You're not making a positive program and sticking your neck out there and waiting to see who shoots you down.
So speaking of conspiracy theories, one of the through lines throughout the book, and then you do devote a chapter to it in completion, is that in all of these movements, somehow blaming the Jews, it always comes around to blaming the Jews. Now the language has changed. Now it's blaming Zionists or blaming Israel.
Get it right, Dave. No one says Jews anymore. It's Zionists.
Right now, it's not politically correct to say Jews, so you just say Zionists or you say Israel or whatever it is. But you really did lay out an interesting piece in almost every example throughout time, that they were always on both sides. The capitalists would say the Jews are socialists. The socialists would say Jews are capitalists, and every other which way. What do you think that is about? I think you probably just explained it with this conspiratorial thing and the other, right?
Yeah, well, look, here's the problem. If you genuinely think that your State Department, your CIA, your president, for all their many, many faults, and I'm sure they're legion, but if you genuinely think that they, for instance, secretly blew up the Twin Towers and then let Al-Qaeda take the blame, that they invented a way to go into war in Iraq, that Obama it applies to the right as much as the left. Obama isn't a real American, he's a secret Muslim from Kenya. If you genuinely believe in all that, you have to believe in an extraordinary view of the world where a handful of people can fool the entire population, the sheeple. Well, once you start thinking like that, who are those handful of people historically? You start down that road, you end up in the Jews. What I found shocking, being called Cohen, is this.
I was going to mention this.
Yeah, and I think some of your liberal American Jews will find it shocking, because I say we're 5 years ahead of you when it comes and hits them, is this. I never expected to find anti-Semitism on the left. Perhaps I was being naive, but it is quite extraordinary, the extent of it, and it's quite extraordinary how it's tolerated, how it isn't called out. Now,
so do you think some of that, when I hear people say that, and first, real quick, we should mention. So you just mentioned your last name, Cohen. You're actually not Jewish. So you were. No, my family abandoned their religion for the religion of Marxism. So I'm from an ex-communist family of about 1900. Jews wouldn't have me as Jewish, but you call Cohen Dave, it's not unnatural people to think you're Jews, and also you're Jewish. But here's the problem: if you look at anti-Semitism has virtually nothing to do with Jews. Anti-Semitism became, in the late 19th century, the early 20th century, and the Tsars and the Nazis, it was a way of fighting progress. It was a way of saying, look, democracy, human rights, women's rights, all these, you shouldn't believe in them. They're all fakes, they're all frauds. They're all, behind them is a puppet master pulling the strings, and that puppet master is the Jews. So you would have thought that a left that believes in democracy and human rights would be, for its own sake as much as anything else, on alert the whole time for the dangers of anti-Semitism. But actually, going back to Chomsky, they believe democracy, they believe human rights is all a fraud, they believe it's all a lie. So that's one reason why they end up there. Well, not Chomsky himself, but that's why people end up there. And they don't understand what goes with it. They don't look at organizations like Hezbollah or Iran and say, hold on a second, okay, they're anti-Semitic, but that's just because of Israel. And then they don't say, but hold on a second, but look at the way they treat women, look at the way they treat homosexuals, look at the way that they dismiss human rights, the way they dismiss democracy. They don't understand that anti-Semitism actually goes along with that. And once you accept anti-Semitism, you have to
not just throw out anti-racism, but you have to throw out all your progressive principles, because historically anti-Semitism has always been used by ultra-reactionary movements, who again the left should be against.
Right. So this, I always say when it comes to this, and I was just in Israel last week, and at the top of the show when I did my piece, I was saying how I saw coexistence there. I was in Jerusalem. You know, I ate falafel in the Arab Quarter. I saw Israeli policemen helping Muslim women move a box. I saw ultra-Orthodox Jews. I mean, that doesn't happen anywhere in the Middle East except for Israel. And of course, not to say everything's perfect there, and there's all sorts of political problems and religious problems and all that. But the only place that has any progressive values in the Middle East is Israel, and they hate it.
Well, yeah. But I mean, look. You shouldn't engage in whataboutery. And there's a lot of whataboutery on the left. There's quite a lot of whataboutery on the right. You know, you say, someone says, well, there's problems on the West Bank, there's problems in Gaza, and you say, what about Syria? Which actually is quite a good whatabout.
Right.
But, you know, which is a hell of a whatabout when you think about it. But, you know, you shouldn't say that doesn't mean the Palestinians shouldn't have their own state. That doesn't mean there are horrendous problems with the Israeli right. And you shouldn't sort of romanticize Israel at all. But here's the thing: is the problem is one of the great reasons for, I would say, the liberal difficulty in understanding radical Islam is there's a very good liberal impulse that assumes the world is rational. You know, that assumes that if there is this terrible terroristic movement that would blow up the Twin Towers, that would, we knew if they had chemical weapons or nuclear weapons they could use against civilians, they would. There must be a root cause for it. You know, there must be some rational explanation that we can satisfy, that we can appropriate these evil gods. They can't just be that angry against stuff. Is not partly our fault.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that actually right after the Paris attacks, because I saw immediately my friends on the left saying American foreign policy, even though 2 days later, you know, Boko Haram killed 140 people, and obviously that has nothing to do with American foreign policy. But there's this rationalization, even though at the same time, the people who did the Paris attacks were saying this is for religious purposes.
Yeah, but your friends on the left just ought to go and read the history of Nazism or the history of communism. Yes, there are rational reasons that you can blame. You know, you could say if bombs go off at the Charlie Hebdo office in Paris, your friends on the left say, oh, it's their fault. They shouldn't have put cartoons of Mohammed. Yeah. People are slaughtered at a Jewish supermarket in Paris, the hyper-cash supermarket. Oh, it's their fault because of Israel. Because Israel's occupying the West Bank. So, okay, you kill the satirists, that's okay. You kill the Jews, that's okay. People are slaughtered at a football stadium, the Stade de Paris. People are slaughtered at a rock concert. People are slaughtered at a Cambodian restaurant on the Parisian Boulevard. Well, that's kind of their fault because, well, we're not quite sure. American foreign policy, maybe French foreign policy. Now, these are sort of rational explanations, and there's a bit of truth in them. The problem is, every step you take seems rational and liberal, but every step you take takes you away from rationality and liberalism. And you end up like the very murderers you're trying to explain, because you accept their whole ideology, but you don't understand it. You don't understand that they are not people who are sitting there saying, well, we've got a rational grievance, like someone about to file a claim at a county court. Right. They have a utopian totalitarian ideology. You know, and having lived through the 20th century, or a last bit of the 20th century, when utopian ideologies kill millions of people, we still don't understand that someone like Islamic State says, we think we can create heaven on earth. We think we can create a caliphate that will govern the whole earth, and this will be paradise. And to do that, what's it matter if 1 million, 2 million, 10 million people are killed? They don't. They think they're explained. They don't understand anything.
Yeah, so that actually is the ultimate irony, because on one hand, you're saying, well, look, if we took everything, if we did whatever it is they want us to do, right? We took all our troops out of here, we stopped bombing here, whatever, then suddenly they'd like us more. But that's not what they're saying. So it really is, it's the most ironic piece of this.
What they want you to do, Dave, is become them.
Yeah.
That's the only way they'll leave you alone. And so here you go. I mean, your friends in California, I'm probably, you know, I've never met them. I'm sure they're lovely people.
Some of them.
You know, some, okay. But, you know, I'm sure they think of themselves as anti-sexist, anti-racist, anti-homophobic. I'm sure they're fine on trans issues. You know, I bet some of them don't even eat meat. But they will then, through thinking they're being logical, end up defending the most sexist, racist, homophobic, illiberal movements on earth. And do so in a, this is not a point made by me, it's a point made by a very brilliant French philosopher, do so in a very narcissistic way. You know, it's all our fault. We are the center of the world. You know, if something terrible happens, it must be down to us. Not that people in the rest of the world have their own agency, not people in the rest of the world can't be just as wicked or stupid as we can. They are infants, they are children who are goaded by us. It's all down to what we do. We are still, you know, the narcissist, the ego, the people at the center of it all.
Yeah, I think when I had Douglas Murray on, he illustrated that point. He said, look, the world could go to hell in a handbasket and it'll have nothing to do with America. You know, you just can't, it's just childlike thinking.
Yeah.
All right, so...
incidentally treats Muslim populations as children. You know, it infantilizes them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it says, look, we're adults. We're these white Western Europeans. You know, we can handle satire. We can handle our leaders and gods and bishops and clerics. My God, you can't do it with those Muslims. They're like toddlers. You know, like violent little delinquent children. You show them a cartoon they don't like, they start blowing the place up.
Yeah. Ironically, that's what George W. Bush called the soft bigotry of low expectations, which I keep crediting Bill Maher with, but apparently it was George W. Bush, which is mind-blowing in itself.
That is a very, very good phrase, and it's true. Yeah. And actually, it's worse than soft bigotry. It does keep people down because, look, Muslim men and women watching your program in California doesn't really help them when they're going out looking for a job. Or, you know, looking to get on in life, or wanting to be treated with respect, or wanting to be treated as equals. If liberals are saying, oh, well, you know, they're very, very funny people, these people, you have to be very careful what you say in front of them, one cartoon, and they'll blow the top. It doesn't help them. It doesn't help them be full citizens to be treated in a totally different way from everyone else.